Well, hello, ladies.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
I feel like I've missed you a couple of the sessions. What did I miss?
Oh, a lot. A lot. You missed the Get Paid, right? The Get Paid What You're Worth webinar. It was amazing.
That was
I'm
so
now
great.
doing the shorts. Amazing. So I get the chance to rehear it, rewatch everything. It was
So
so
if you have missed some of those sessions like myself, because I was gone on site for a whole week, where can you go to rewatch those? Because it sounds like those are sessions that should be definitely revisited, both if you're a hirer or if you're a freelancer.
You can go on Liz's profile. So Liz is formally organizing this event from her profile. So if you go to Liz's profile, you have a tab event, you have post, you have comments, you have event, and there you have Liz's latest events. And the
Are we
upcoming...
also live streaming these to the 𝗀𝗶𝗍𝗁 YouTube page?
Oh, okay.
We are streaming them to 𝘁𝗏𝗏 Events, which is the production behind those webinars. So they're definitely available there. But what I was going to say actually before we go there, if you're going to Liz's profile, Liz is how many followers away from 30,000? 30?
From 20,000, and I think I'm like
yes.
27 people away from 20,000
All right.
followers.
If you're one of those
which means
27
absolutely
people,
nothing to anybody whatsoever, but it's really fun to see.
do Liz a favor and make sure you follow her so she can celebrate. I'm not sure exactly what the big celebration might be, but like a cupcake, something like that.
And that sounds perfect.
Sounds great. Fabulous. All right. So here's something that actually I wanted to touch on because we are 2 webinars and I can't wait to introduce our speaker today, Jonathan Alba. He's amazing. He's going to talk about how as a freelancer you will not run out of work if you follow his framework. So I can't wait to get us on the screen. But before we do that, something I really wanted to highlight. If you're a company, if you're an organization, if you're an agency, or if you're someone that hires freelancers and contractors to support your event in any capacity, marketing, project, AV, on-site management and support, speaker management, content support, whatever it is that you need help with, we are hosting a freelancer marketing event on November 5th to the 7th, and we would love for you to join us. Now, it's completely free for hirers to join, and I would love for Anka to showcase, if you're a hirer, how easy it is to get on the platform and set a profile for yourself. And we are bringing to you a whole list of pre-vetted freelancers, talent that you have access to. So Anka, let's do that really quick while we have you.
Sure. So this is, first we are inviting the already existing hirers in the next 2 days. Starting tomorrow, they have 2 days to build their profile. It's the last days they can join the platform or register for this event. Then we will invite the freelancers. This is the matchmaking platform. It's conversation starter and it's amazing. But so it's so easy. You click to get started. You input your email address. Let's put, for the fun of it, my other email address. I will be very okay. And to build the account, so this is because I already have built an account. You can choose to be a freelancer normally or a head of events, a hirer. Yes, CAO, COO, hiring executive. You write a bit about yourself. Maybe your vision in events, maybe what you're looking for, maybe what type of events you are organizing value-wise, let's say. Then you select maximum 5 top skills you are looking for. Maybe you are really needing post-event analytics and reporting. Or my favorite specialty all over the place, it's audience segmentation and targeting, because we talk about it and we don't do it. Then you will need to... You have examples here, some examples. You write in your bio and you continue. This is what's your project scope. So meaning for what type of event you are needing, for a conference, what do you need exactly? You need to describe very briefly your project scope. Yeah. And this is it. What type of contract do you do? On-set, hybrid, fully virtual? What type of event you select? Maximum 3 choices, your country, and that is it. This is it. So easy. And then you will get access to the full list. I said they will come later on in the next days. The freelancers will also be invited to build their profiles, but it's that easy. You just need 2 type of descriptions. You know best what you do. Freelancers know best how to power pitch themselves. If not, they will learn today. So that's it.
And I would just say you don't have to have an active project right this very second that you're hiring for. This whole event is for us to connect freelancers and potential hirers. So if you ever hire freelancers for agency projects or for corporate projects, or you're looking to build your bench, this is just an amazing opportunity for you to network in a way that is actually connecting skills that you hire for and freelancers that have those skills. You don't have to jump into the community and kind of like try to feel your way around. You don't have to physically fly somewhere and meet people at an event. We have 3 days dedicated for you to do the matchmaking. So we're very excited about it.
15 minutes power pitch interviews. So power interviews. Yes. And you get to know the feel of a freelancer. You might be convinced from their power pitch sentence that it's what you need or it's something rare, because this is what we're talking about in these webinars, no? How to select precisely your niche and your messaging and everything.
Love it. With that, let's bring Jonathan to the stage. I know he's been waiting excitedly to get on it. Jonathan, the stage is yours. Would you do a quick introduction for yourself and get us started with how, as a freelancer, you will never run out of work because you have built a consistent project pipeline? I can't wait to hear all about it.
We're all excited to hear.
Yeah, me too. It's a tall order to live up to. So thank you for the build up. I'm Jonathan Alba. I'm coming live from my Airbnb in Sofia, Bulgaria. I was born and raised in Austin, Texas. That's my home base. I'm spending the next 2 months in the EU, building some projects with cities that I visit. So I've had an interesting journey in my career. I started off as an academic. I spent 10 years in academia. And I've done everything from teach to research to consult. I ended my stint in academia as a researcher, leading international research in economic development and entrepreneurship, where we were working with regions across the globe. And what we were doing was helping the cities market themselves and then consulting with them on how to build a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship. And so I learned all this great knowledge for 10 years, especially in entrepreneurship. And then I left and ran a private company for 3 years. It was a startup that had flatlined and rebuilt that during the pandemic. And we had a lot of success. We operated in the event industry. After 3 years, I stopped doing that, took some time to myself and started freelancing. So for the last 1.5 years, I've been a freelancer and a solopreneur, but I've also consulted for the last 10 years, the whole time I was in academia. And so I'm here today to share lessons that I've learned and what works for me, best practices, and keep in mind that they may not work for you. So I'm going to share, again, things that I coach on, consult on, and that I practice. So I think your question was, how do you build a consistent pipeline? That is the $1 million question. So if I can leave everyone with one thing today, it's actually not that difficult. There's 3 steps. The first one, which we'll get clear on today, is what are my beliefs about sales? What comes up when I think about the word sales? And taking some time to just explore those beliefs, because that's where it all starts. And we'll talk a little bit more about intention and how to set them when going out and prospecting or talking to people and having sales conversations. So first one is beliefs. What do I believe about sales? Because that influences the actions that I take and my thoughts. The second step is to identify who do I want to work with, and to take the time. Some of my favorite questions are like, who are my soulmate clients? Who are my ideal clients? Like, who fills my cup? There's a million different questions that you can ask. Second step, though, is to ask, who do I want to work with? And the third step, go talk to them. And we'll dive into each one of those sections a little bit further as we go on. So it's as straightforward as that. We overcomplicate it. And today, in today's age with social media, especially, I mean, we're on LinkedIn, with websites, I'm not the tool guy. I'll just let that be known up front. There's a million tools that you can use. AI is making my life a lot easier. And at the same time, it also gets in the way of doing the dirty work, which is talking to humans. That's what building a pipeline is all about, creating strategies and effective ways to get into conversations with people who want to give us their money to work, to hire us. And that can make a lot of folks uncomfortable when it comes down to having to make that ask. So there's 1,000,001 ways to generate those conversations. And I focus more so on what do you do when you have that conversation? How do you have that conversation so that you can be fully present in that conversation and then build that relationship? And from that relationship, you can grow a business, because it starts with the first client. So I talked a lot, threw a bunch out there. I guess what follow-up questions do y'all have?
Well, I want to start out with the belief one, because I think
Sure.
that's huge. And like I put in the chat, being a lot of freelancers either became freelancers by choice or by force, and now they're in a position where they've got to build their business. And it's, if you've read the E-Myth, that book where it's like, well, are you the baker? Are you the business owner? Are you whatever? And a lot of the freelance folks in our industry, we're amazing at whatever we're amazing at. And it's not sales. And we just have that belief that sales is like used car salesman. I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to feel like I'm like trying to sell MLM on Facebook and getting everyone to buy my Amway or whatever. So how do we put that away and think of it differently?
So
that is so true, because I want to interject for a second. Like, I can sell anyone else. Like, I can sell Liz, I can sell 𝗀𝗁𝗁 Club, I can sell Anka's skill set. But when it comes to sell myself, and I don't know if that's a matter of like the mindset of how we were raised, like to be, humble and to not, sound like the, used car salesman. But then when it comes to really put myself out there in a way that doesn't sound like it can be hard. So I'm curious, Jonathan, to Liz's question, how did you overcome that for yourself, or for someone struggling with it? How can you overcome that?
Yeah. So how do you overcome it? Well, let me drop a really harsh truth. There's two truths. So it comes from this guy. His name is Marketing for Hippies. I highly recommend his Instagram channel and his content. It's helpful. But there's two harsh truths. The first one is it's really hard to sell ourselves. Like, we suck at selling ourselves. And the second truth is we will always suck at selling ourselves. It's so much easier to sell someone else. So how do we do it? It's counterintuitive. We stop selling ourselves. We actually don't do it. So when we're in sales conversations, the last thing I want to do is sell someone. I just want to be infinitely curious about them. And I have a process that I'll outline. I want to be as curious as possible about a select few number of things that helps me identify if I'm the appropriate person for them to hire. So oftentimes people, and myself included, we would call it spilling our candy in the lobby. We start pitching before we even get down to sit and watch the movie. And people can sense that and they resist it. So the simple solution for that, it's easy but hard, is to actually stop selling. I'm watching a nod. Like, does that make sense?
I'm trying to conceptualize that, because it makes sense. And I think it always will make sense if you provide value for someone, and that can be through so many different things of how you position yourself, what your, expertise is, your skill set level, and provide value through content, through, one-on-one meetings, through the community. Like, for example, Liz is amazing at that. Then people, in my experience, has been, people will come to you and they will seek to learn more because they're curious. Oh, I saw that you're interested in, I don't know, AV production or AI. I saw that you have things to say about this or that. I would love to learn more about that, or learn more about what you do, right?
Yes.
And then that's when the opportunity comes to now have a pitch. Because here's the downside of that. People will come to you and ask, and you're like, So I do blah, 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 and you're like, noise. You have to also dial in now. How do you position yourself in a way that it's easy to translate what your skill set is, right?
So that's the trap. What do you do? That's the trap question. And when I like work with people, myself, I'd never answer that question. Very, very rarely. Or if I do, I say something that's like a hook. So like, tell me more. Like, I was just asked a question like, what's your superpower? I was in a sales meeting before coming on to here. And I said, my superpower is finding the soul of a city and communicating that out. That's it. And then I left that there. And so if that person is interested, then they can start to ask me questions. The question though, what do you do, can be simply put back on them, or like, what are some of the reasons you ask? I like
to say, I do as little as possible. What do you do?
Yes. We can use humor. I do a lot of things. If I start telling you all the things, you'll get boring. You know, what are some of the reasons you ask? So as human communicators, we are often poor question askers. And so the dance, so to speak, of sales is really drilling into what are they really asking? Are you asking to be polite? Are you asking because you saw something on LinkedIn that I posted about that you want to know more about? Like, what is it that you truly want to know? And oftentimes we're uncomfortable to ask that question, to be direct. And it's really about saving them time and myself time, because I could talk about the 7 things that I do and bore someone to tears. I just came from a sales call that started off with 20 minutes of a PowerPoint presentation of all the, like, I just wanted to like rip my hair out. And when I got that one moment, I just threw out a line. And I have an email from someone in that meeting, actually in my inbox. I threw out 2 lines, actually. One thing I needed help with and another thing that I do. And one of the women that was in the meeting emailed me. So let me know that my hook worked. I've engaged someone in a conversation. Once they're in the conversation, it really becomes all about them. That's how I fill my pipeline. There have been conversations where I haven't pitched at all. They basically just agreed to work with me by me asking questions about them. And then I know how to do what they're wanting to do. So then at the end, it's like, would you like me to help you with that? Okay, well, how much do you charge? And then we have that conversation and then we start working together. That skill though took, Liz made a joke, like it took 47, it took me 37 years to develop that skill, and it's still developing. So I guess the major thing is stop pitching and ask more questions. And there will be a time in the conversation. You can tell if you've done it right because the person will then shift their attention back to you and start asking you questions because they internally realize that they've been talking, monopolizing the conversation.
So there's a question in the chat around, this is amazing for in-person networking and you can really get that,
Sure.
But how do you build a digital pipeline and get, like, if you are reaching out to people and you do get them on the phone, there has to be some sort of pitch once you get them. You can't just be like, well, thanks for joining. I have questions for you.
Yes.
How does that work?
You'd be surprised. Well, so is the question like, what do I say when someone messages me, or what do I say?
If someone says yes, so whatever you've used to get somebody on the phone, and I mean, but how do you both make it a discovery call when they're maybe not viewing it as a discovery call? Is there a proper setup so that it's like, hey,
Yes.
I see that you have this problem. I wondered if I could learn more about it. Because the one that I hate the most that I'm getting all the time right now is, I really like your profile. Wanted to see if there's a way we can collab. That means nothing. That is the worst outreach. And no, that means that
Yes.
you want to use me or take my audience.
Yeah. So, okay, Liz, like, how do you respond to that? That's a great example. How do you respond when they say they want to collaborate with you?
Oh, well, this has been really hard for me, and everyone around me that hears me say it lately knows that I am now starting to say, I manage a community with over 6,000 incredible members. And right now my time is prioritized for 𝗀𝗶𝗄𝐻 insiders. I'd love for you to take a look at the community. And if you think that it's right for you, then let's have a conversation once you've joined.
Yeah.
So I'm just getting curious now, like, what do you think that they're wanting when they ask you to collaborate? Like, what do you think?
My money or my network?
Money or, okay. So then what we're getting at is intent. Mm-hmm. So what would it be like if we were very clear on our intention when we got on the call or when we messaged someone? Mm-hmm. And that's what most people get uncomfortable with, is the intent to make a sale or the intent to express interest, whether it be romantically, professionally, a lot of us are uncomfortable with being very clear with our intent. And so then we leave the other person wondering, like, what the heck does this person want from me? They can sense it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did improv, a lot of improv classes and training, there's 2 rules to improv, main rules. It's have a point of view and have an emotion. So you commit fully when you step on stage. And the same thing applies when you enter into a conversation, is let people know the intent up front. So it could sound as something as straightforward as I'm here to sell you something. Or, hey, I don't know if we're a good fit. I have a lot of questions for you. And at the end, I may ask for your business. That it's being very, very clear up front. And it's something where
That's hard. That makes my
I
stomach
wish
turn.
people were doing that more often, because I swear I'm like inundated with all those DMs, and now they get into my emails too somehow. I'm like, I'm gonna have to hide my email address on LinkedIn, where you have those wishy-washy, you know, trying to outreach, but no set intent. And I really like the way you frame that, because if I knew what they're going for, I mean, obviously I have an inkling, right? But if
Sure.
I were more in the know of what is the purpose of this 15-20 minute let's get together discovery, whatever you want to call it, conversation, because honestly 15 minutes here and there over the time, you know, over 10 hours in a day, it's time that I don't get back, and I don't have that time. And I love Sean was saying, like, wait to set guardrails, Liz, because I feel sometimes we do have to set boundaries to our own time, our own schedule. I can be everything for everyone, but I also don't want to lose opportunities because my boundaries are like this high at this point, right? So I wish more people would do that. How can we encourage us, ourselves, but others to be more straightforward with their intent, and how do we frame it in a way that doesn't come across aggressive?
Yeah.
aggressive.
Well, and I would like the ones that I've gotten that say, hey, I'm setting up as a freelancer. I've had 20 years in the industry. I'm currently looking for a couple of clients that can help me build my business. Do you know of anyone you could connect me with that's currently hiring freelancers with my expertise? And I'm like, that is straightforward. And I'm always willing to have conversations around that.
So we train people how to communicate with us. Liz just gave a great example. So one strategy could be to have an email template for when you get those emails, and you just kind of template the response back, like, hey, can you put it in your ask or your request in this framework? And Liz just gave a great framework for request. The other thing is modeling that behavior in our professional affairs and endeavors. And I also want to be cautious, because I oftentimes will reach out without an intent, and I'll let people know, like, hey, I heard you on this podcast and think it was really interesting. I just want to talk with you further. And so that happens too. So it doesn't always have to be Mr. Intent. You must know what you like, because people take it to the extreme. And I've met some of the most incredible people just by blind reach out or sitting next to them on a plane. So it's a healthy balance. And I like the word that you said, boundaries. And I would, within sales, it would be called the, I forgot what they called it in Sandler's sales training, but basically you create your own boundaries in selling. So like, what are your rules when you engage with prospects? And it's a powerful exercise. So Liz jokes with me, we have it like, I don't write proposals. Like, that's a boundary of mine. You know, I don't give pricing over email. You can see where this goes. So like, yeah, I'd ask, like, what are some of y'all's boundaries that you've established in y'all's career when it comes to selling?
I know for myself that, you know, again, going back to the schedule, because I have to run such a tight schedule. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I'm telling you, when I'm looking at my schedule, my kids are looking at my schedule and they're working around it to set time for us to do things. And my 8-year-old can tell, well, it looks like you have a bit of time here and there. Can we do things? Right. So if it takes that much to give to the ones that are the closest to me, obviously it has to take much more to give to those that I don't yet even know, right? Like I freely give of my expertise and my time to the people that I know. And like, for example, engaging with Anka, engaging with Liz, with the community, that's something that I will never have restrictions against it per se. Obviously, there's some boundaries and time setting, but the respect of the other person's time. Another thing for me is like such a turn off. People showing up late to meetings or people not showing up at all. You set the time, you went through the process, and now you realize that this person is not even coming to this, showing up to this meeting, that it's been scheduled in the calendar, confirmed, follow-up sent, all the things, right? As Sean was saying, time is your inventory. Protect it, and with everything you have. That's one thing that for me is like, if I'm going to go through the motions and do the next steps, please be respectful of my time as I am of yours.
So this feels, though, completely off of what we're trying to do, which is build our pipeline, never run out of work. So I feel like I have to be back to back in meetings all day, every day, meeting everyone who reaches out to me in order to eventually 3 months down the line, have them remember they talked to me and send me work.
Right.
What is the real way I should be doing this?
Okay. Let me, I love that question, Liz, because it's something that I deal with as well. And I'll get to that in 1 second. Anka, so what I heard is it's really important for people to be on time. You have a lot going on in your life and you don't have time for silly business. You want to do business, right? You want to be present. You want to have a good conversation. So how do you want to let people know that up front?
Right. I mean, it goes back to that honesty that we talked about, like being upfront, being open, and figuring out exactly what is the purpose of this meeting. Because again, to Liz's point, we are always building in the future, right? If you're someone that is working currently on a project, that project you're not necessarily building pipeline for. You're constantly working months in advance, right? So to your question, I have to be very, very strict with my time now, because I'm already dividing myself between now, past, present, and future, right? It's like there's not just one timeline that moves forward.
So then I would encourage you to let people know when you start working or engaging with them, the rules that you play by. So a lot of this work is sticking to our own process that we develop and not giving in to someone else's process. Meaning people have processes that they use to buy services. And when we have our own sales process, then we don't give in to theirs. And every deal that I've lost, I can track back to a piece of my process that I skipped or didn't choose to engage in. So setting the rules for engagement up front, if someone's coming into our world, is really important. And so I would encourage you or invite you to think about your rules as it comes to time. So like, hey, when I work with people, I expect them to be on time. I expect meetings to end on, like, people don't do that in business. Very, very few, very rare. And so when you do that, that's how you build a consistent pipeline. You literally stand out by doing things differently than the competition or other people in your industry do.
Interesting. A quick question that Tress had in our conversation here, and I, going back to Lisa's question as well, but just I want to bring this to the forefront. What are the best top of funnel tools that you recommend? Web form, LinkedIn, professional network, cold calling in the buildup of this pipeline?
It depends. My teacher's favorite answer. And Liz, I didn't forget about your question. We'll get to it. It depends. Who are you trying to reach? Where are they? There's one person that does work with venues, venue managers or owners. They're not on LinkedIn. The majority of them are on Instagram. So the LinkedIn messaging or content creation didn't really drive much results. Are they on Reddit? It really depends on who are you trying to reach. And when you're crystal clear on who you're trying to reach, then the tool or the platform becomes clear. So there's a million different ones. I mean, I could tell you, if you're trying to reach Fortune 50 CEOs, it might serve you well to buy first class tickets to Shanghai and just sit in first class and see like who you bump into. Like, in all seriousness, it just really depends. And I think they're very effective at marketing. I got sucked into AI, using AI tools over the last 3 days. I paid $20 for a tool I had no business needing or using, versus getting a pen and piece of paper and like doing the mind work and then finding the tool. So the first question is, who are you trying to reach? And then which tool or which platform would those people more likely to be on? That's how I approach that. So it's a trap question.
I love it. To Lisa's question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Again, I would go again to the what both Liz and Danka said. We all hate sales. We do. We all complain when we receive messages that sell us, especially when they don't give me a like at the post, Give me a like and then sell me something. Or, yeah, this is subtle, but it's out there so often. And I saw those shame posts about, look at this sell message that I received. But we all do it at some point, no?
Yeah.
Because if we stick to the circle of collaborators we have, they might not give us work, or we might not have work for months. So we, at some point in our careers, need to look out there. If we don't attend an event in, again, the next 3 months, what do? We don't work? No, we need to reach people online, strangers, people we never worked with. So how do we do that? Because that implies sales. Yeah.
Yes. I think we hate sales just because we don't know how to do it. And when we learn that it can be fun and rewarding and challenging, then we enjoy doing it. And
I think we hate sales because we don't like the way it makes us feel when we're hard sold. But none of us want to hard sell, therefore we shouldn't hard sell.
Oh, I would say, Liz, for the next month that you just go hard sell.
Yeah,
to see what it's like. Yeah, I mean, it's to do the opposite, right? Like,
oh my God, I would turn into stone. That would be awful.
Well, then what is a hard sell? Like, let's define that. Like, what is that? What is that for folks? Yeah.
Well, as we call it, pitch slap, where it's like there's no warm up, there's no conversation, there's no get to know you, there's no even knowing if there's a fit. A hard sale is that feeling of, you have not asked me any questions, you don't even know if I have a problem that you can solve, and yet you're trying to sell me something. So I think that none of us want to do that, but sometimes, and this is a challenge that I've had with 𝗀𝗶𝗄𝗁, is that I've got this, I'm taking a product marketing approach of, here's all the speeds and feeds and features that we offer, and not a, what challenge are you trying to solve, and is this the right community for you approach. And I think when we do that with freelancing, we do the same thing. It's like, well, I can do trade shows and I can do this and that, and like, and here's my list of all the things I can do, rather than saying, hey, are you overwhelmed by any part of the events that you're working on right now? Because like, I actually have expertise in a few of these areas that you just mentioned. And so I feel that's the part that we don't really think about or learn.
And I think, to me also, just to add to what you said, Liz, I'm going to say, for me, hard sell also means when you just don't know when to stop. You just keep on like nailing the same point again and again and again. And I've already said that this is not the right timing, or maybe not the right product, or not the right service, but you just keep insisting. That, to me, is another part of that. It's like, you need to know when to stop.
Yeah, clearly. But I'm on the other side. I send a one-off email or message, and then I'm done. I never go back.
And you're on to the next one.
Yeah. I might run, kind of freelance.
You feel like you knock on the door and then run.
Yeah, exactly.
We want it to be easy. And sometimes it is, but more often it's not, because we're dealing with humans and we're forming relationships. And relationships go through stages. And so a lot of salespeople want to skip. I mean, just to use a dating analogy, they want to get married right off the bat, and you don't know me, or they like the sleaziness, they want to hop into bed. It's like, I need to be romanced a little bit. Like, I know what this is, but can we get some, a dinner, flowers, a walk? And once we, as freelancers, I think it's essential for us to be able to communicate and know the stages of a relationship, a business relationship. and all the things that we need to know to protect ourselves. Because as freelancers, we don't have resources that companies have. And so oftentimes, and we can be honest with people. It's like, hey, I'm a freelancer. I'm not very good at sales. I have a lot of questions that I'm going to ask you to see if this is a good fit. Many freelancers don't even have a clear offer. They're an expert at something, but they don't have a clear offer yet. And until you talk to, when we were training entrepreneurs, scientists, we would make them talk to 150 people in 6 weeks to get a better sense of their market and the problems that they were solving. And so until you've had that many conversations, till you get to Liz, you have you're a bona fide expert. You understand the industry very, very well. And that is in part because the amount of conversations that you've had with people. And so as freelancers, I think we do a disservice by pretending we have all this expertise. I'll just speak for myself. I've burned my ass so many times by pretending that I, could do top of funnel, or I could do that, but that's not my interest at all. But anyway, so the more people we talk to, the better our offer gets, and the more comfortable we get in these types of conversations.
Quick question for you from the chat, Jonathan. What techniques have worked for you to create repeat business and also ensure that clients return for future projects? Sometimes, you get hired for a one-off, but, to exist in this business of recurring business, that ideal scenario is where you get repeated business, right?
Yes. So it's a tricky one. What's worked for me in the places that I've worked in the past is to set the expectation up front. So oftentimes a freelancer will say I'm excited to do this project, versus I'm looking for a client where I can, build and grow a relationship with that has multiple projects. So stating that your intention from the start, and that can feel uncomfortable because oftentimes people don't want to commit until you have a working history. So stating the intention up front, again, who do you want to work with? Do you want to prioritize one-offs, or are you looking for ongoing engagements? And letting people know that up front, regardless if that's the case or not. And then simply having check-ins. I wish I could say it was more fancy, but having consistent check-ins with the client, asking them how they're going, and then what's coming up in the pipeline. The last thing that we want to do is ask at the end of an engagement, what else you have got? It comes off as desperate. And I want to be thinking ahead. So that's where I need to put on my account manager hat a little bit. And the sell never stops. It sounds kind of slimy to say, but it never stops. As a freelancer, someone can terminate me anytime. I just lost a client before our engagement ended because of a personal situation this week. And the way that we handled that, was handled with grace, but we just never know. In the freelance world, clients can change their mind, people can get fired. So the sell is always happening. Every time I am engaging with a client, I'm asking them, hey, what's changed? What's going on? And again, just by being curious and listening, I can, we just landed, a major event in Berlin, or we're thinking about expanding to London. I've got contacts there. So it's you're always selling. How do I say that a different way? We're always being curious about what's going on in their world so that we can be prepared to better serve our clients.
Yeah.
So, there was a question along what you're saying here is how often are you doing that? How many times are you following up, especially if they've stopped responding? When do you give up?
I give up after I use the 𝘁𝗶𝗿𝗀 question. So
would it be impossible to?
No, it's did you give up on? Did you give up on working together? So the key, that question has a 90% success rate for me. What people struggle with, though, is what to say afterwards. So they want the technique, and then it works, and they're like, oh crap, well, now I'm dealing with the situation. So the best question I have is, did you give up on, or did you decide to go a different way? Or you can even get more outlandish with it. Did you think I was a jerk? I remember we had a major project with, I won't say the company's name. They're a major events company, and they were just giving us a hard time, our salesperson. And so I got on the phone, and the first thing I said to her was, are you trying to break up with us? She was like, no, no, no. And then the conversation turned and got productive. So sometimes we use the no-based question to call out the bad behavior, and then we like get on with the actual conversation.
Yeah. To your point, as you were saying that, you know, you never stop selling. So I was running a program in Phoenix last week. It was a 5-day program, and they, you know, from the stage, they already announced their next date, their next event. So obviously the follow-up question to the event organizer is, so who's helping with that event in 2025? You know, it's already a year from now, but guess what? If they're working on it, that's like a free invite to make sure that I put myself out there as an option, or someone else that I know that could be an option to support that, right?
Yeah, oftentimes we just don't ask that question or let them know that we are interested. Again, intent. Hey, I want to work with you. And sometimes they can't hear us. I've been working on a deal with an entrepreneur I want to work with for 5 months. And I get closer each time. And it's frustrating because oftentimes he can't hear me. And I just connected him with someone I connected him with the top person in his space, actually. So I connected them, and they're going to do an interview together. And he was messaging me today, and we're talking about strategy. But that's 6 months. And now he's finally being receptive to me. He didn't view me as an equal. And that was also in my communication as well. So intent is important. And I would say be persistent if you really want something. And then think about, how can I change my communication? Or how can, as they say in the business world, add value? And it's towing a thin line kind of how badly do you want to work with them?
Let's repeat that again, Jonathan, because you were coming, at least on my side, it looked like he was cutting off. Was that happening on yours?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah, it's frozen. Basically, how bad do you want to work with the person? And so I go until I get a clear no. And then even when I get a no is just no for right now. And sometimes in business. And so if like dream client, I'll never forget, I was in a room with a guy who was running $1 billion consulting wing of a company. And he gave the best sales lesson I've ever received. He worked at a place where his boss would not, they had a list. So this is how I start with like dream clients. I have a list of the top 20 companies I want to work with or clients. And you just focus on that list. And until you get a no from that person, you can't remove them from the list. And so his boss made him keep calling and calling and calling. And they called Blue Cross Blue Shield. And the receptionist is like, dude, you keep calling here. He's like, yeah, I know. My boss will not allow me to stop calling until I hear a no from your boss. And so they got a 15-minute meeting. They got a no, but in 6 months later, they closed the deal. So persistence pays off if you really know who you want to work with.
If you ever watch Malcolm in the Middle, there's the scene where the youngest child, Dewey, is asking, and he asks the question, and the mom goes, no. And then they show what he hears, which is, but ask again in 5 minutes.
We want no. That's what we want. As salespeople, we want no. We want to hear no. I don't want to buy from you. Get away.
We can move on.
Yes, thank you. Like,
until you deal with those people that never know that no means no, like for real no.
Yes.
One other question for you really quick here, which I thought it was interesting, because yes, we all want to get business, but sometimes getting business and seeing the red flags right away, it will never benefit you. At least that has been my experience. So if there are any red flags that you watch for in potential clients, how do you avoid wasting your time in unproductive proposals if you know that you see those signs, you try to follow your instinct, right?
I call them out, and I didn't used to do this. I just did this yesterday. So I had someone who started to invite me to meetings and start talking about work without an engagement. And I said, oh crap, here it goes again. And so I consulted my trusted friend, ChatGPT. I had ChatGPT act as my advisor. and basically called out the red flags and saying, hey, I need structure. I need, clear compensation, roles, responsibility, all that. And so we call it out. That's what we do. We do not wait. I mean, you can wait and then it'll blow up, but we call it out when it's happening. It's close to the specific instance when it happens as humanly possible. Because the further it gets away, the more that our minds make a story and their minds make a different story. And then it's almost unsolvable.
Yeah. So let's back up. We've got about 13 minutes left and get to that pipeline conversation. So all the conversations that we're having, do you need a CRM? Do you just keep it on a Trello board? Like how do you, all the conversations you've had, know when to follow up? Is Outlook calendars? What are you doing?
Spreadsheet to start. If you want to do a CRM, go for it. I say use what you can get a piece of paper and pencil as a freelancer starting out. Just track what you're doing in some form or fashion. There's great CRMs. I like Pipedrive. I've used that with smaller companies. HubSpot, people rave about that. I didn't really enjoy it when I used it running a private company. Spreadsheets work. This guy told me a story yesterday that he just put all of his contacts in a spreadsheet and just tracked for 6 months how many times he contacted them and if they responded. So at the start, I think it's important to just track and just so that you can see that you're making progress and you're marking like when they reply.
Do you have a formula for how many people you should be reaching out to all the time? Because there's some questions in the chat around when I'm busy working on a project, I'm not doing biz dev. So is it like, great, when you have a project, just try to do 5 a week or anything in your head?
It's a great question. I'm naturally curious and I have a problem. I must confess that I really enjoy business development way too much. And so I have a friend that's like, dude, you need to turn it off. And I'm getting better at that. And I'll answer your question previously, Liz, in 1 second. I think it's important to have at least one conversation a week that is centered around business development as a freelancer. And that's a low number. And so and these conversations can be over LinkedIn, like a connection request. So I'm now treating every connection request as an opportunity to connect, to actually I met you at a party, like, hey, what are you working on? What's going on? So I would say at least 3 bare minimum, because as a freelancer, we never know when the project, when we get let go or something happens. So we want to protect our pipeline. It's our most vital resource because it's where the money comes from. So yeah, 3 is pretty low. I'm pretty hardcore when it comes to developing a pipeline. So I just remember working with some CEOs. It's like 5 a day and they would fight me tooth and nail. Some salespeople won't do that. So I guess the question is what feels a little bit uncomfortable for myself and then what fits in my calendar. Right. And it's a great practice in boundary setting. Can I keep this to 15 minutes?
Okay.
And then Liz, I want to answer your question about how do you know when is enough? So there's a question that I started to ask myself. It comes from Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, and Big Magic. And she asks herself in the morning, what do I need to hear? And she just journals on that. And so today I heard that I need to slow down, that I have enough. So I'm having about 2 conversations, biz dev conversations a day. And I'd like to move that to every other day. So, and I'm also in the process of getting clear on my offer. But for you have a lot of momentum. You've got a tremendous community behind you and supporting you. And so, yeah, I'm wondering where's this drive coming that I've got to get a deal, or where does that come from?
I think all of us have the busy versus productive problem, right? Especially those of us that have spent so much time in corporate, where you really, I think, judge yourself on how many meetings you've had each day rather than how much business you're doing or how much work you're doing. And so putting that behind and actually really prioritizing time is, I think, a challenge for a lot of people that are just trying to create the next project or find the next project. So I think it would be a really interesting opportunity for within 𝗀𝗶𝗍𝗁 to have our freelancers attempt to pitch each other, especially before our November 5th, 6th, and 7th Power Pitch event, where we are putting freelancers in front of hirers to actually have us maybe spend a couple of hours and get people on to like practice that pitch. And how do we help you narrow down when you are in a position where it's like, okay, I know these people are looking to hire. What do I say? Do I go in hard with the pitch, or do I start with asking questions? So maybe you can guide us on that. If you know you're given a 15-minute window, you are in front of someone who's looking for a freelancer, how do you frame yourself?
Yeah. Again, I look at it like dating. Do you want to propose? Some people will get married on the first date. You just know. I mean, sometimes you can close a deal like sitting next to someone in a restaurant. Like, I mean, I've closed business in yoga studios, on an airplane. Like, there is that rare instance. And I think the more that we practice, the more that we're able to read the other person. I'm always against pitching unless, like, again, reading the room, unless I know that this person has a defined problem that I can solve. So all right, let me give you a magic question. This is the magic question. And I got this from nonviolent communication founder, Marshall Rosenberg. He was traveling around with a gang member that they were trying to raise money for their nonprofit. And he brought this gang member into a meeting, to a fundraising meeting. And the gang member asked him, yo, man, where's the money? They walked out with a check within 15 minutes. And so Marshall was like thrown back, but he realized that he would then start his meetings with, what do you need to decide to hire me? Or what information do you need from me to give me money? So we can actually start with really direct questions, and we don't have to pitch. They can tell us the information that they want to hear from us. So I would say, like, start with a question that allows me to tailor my pitch to what they want to hear versus just like, I do blah, blah, blah. Like, so
I will
that's the magic question.
On LinkedIn. I will test that starting tomorrow on LinkedIn.
Well, what are you going to test, Anka?
Yeah, what do
you need from me to give me money?
Try it.
Imagine that starter of a conversation.
Imagine. So that's the thing within sales. There's no rules. We make up these rules. Like, we have to, like, if you look at kids, they'll tell you that, you know, you're ugly, or like, what's wrong with your leg? Like, but adults are like, yeah, it seems like something happened. Like, it's about being direct. And I don't get the sense that any of us are, you know, mean or cruel people. So we can do it with kindness. We can do it with levity and humor and play. And we can also step into that kind of like mobster mentality if we need to, right? Like, it's all a play. We're all playing roles. So part of sales is just getting comfortable playing different roles and reading out people.
I love that. Do you have, I know that like traditionally trained biz dev salespeople have some sort of formula, like the 5, 10, 15 or whatever. Are there any of those types of things that you subscribe to, or is it really just talk to people?
Recipe for success. Yeah, I get the sense of like kind of freewheeling it. And part of me wanted to do that just to show people that you can as a freelancer. Like, I don't have a website. My LinkedIn is crappy. I post like semi-regularly, and I have enough work. Now I'm building those things. So like, I'm putting the official pieces in place. The process that has served me the most is called a recipe for success. So just like when you're baking a cake, what are the ingredients that you need to do, or the actions that you want to take every week that will lead you to the outcomes you want? So if you like going to events, how many events do you need to attend a week to generate a sales call or new business? How many LinkedIn connection requests? You get to define your recipe for success. That's like the baseline tool of sales that I would start with. And then you can add more, like how to manage a sales process, manage salespeople as you scale and grow. For freelancers, though, it's having that recipe for success. And it can even be posting on LinkedIn. Like, if that's a way that you generate a lot of buzz in conversations, so then I know that I need to post 3 times, or I want to post 3 times a week on LinkedIn, because that's going to get me closer to the outcomes I want. So that's the one sales tool that has been the most helpful and effective for people just starting out.
Do you find that being a guest on podcasts or other things helps drive business? And should freelancers consider trying to kind of get awareness that way?
Yes, and it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time because, again, our offers aren't clear. They're like, unless you're like super niche and you do like a super specific thing, and over time, so, you know, it's like energy and motion stays in motion. So you want to be in action. So you want to speak. You want to speak everywhere. You want to speak at the farming convention. It doesn't matter at the start. You just want to speak because it's invaluable feedback. So yeah, be on podcasts, practice communicating, practice getting in that power. And then at some point you start to become like Liz and you become a magnet and you draw people to you. So that's the goal.
This was amazing, Jonathan. I'm reading through all the chats over here. People are really appreciative of all your knowledge. And like I mentioned in the chat, you do have an incredible 𝗳𝗐 Academy class inside Club 𝗳𝗐 around just this topic. It's kind of a sales workshop and some really, really good tips and tricks inside there as well. So Anka, anything else for us today?
No, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for sharing your insights. I'm trying to peruse right now through all the comments. I think the one last question, if we want to maybe end on that in a few words, a minute that we have left, is from someone asking, and this was actually came up in the chat before. How do you keep your business development efforts consistent even during times when you're fully booked? And that's kind of talking to that pipeline, how you work in the future, even when you're working in the present. Do you have any last thoughts to add to that, Jonathan?
Be curious. Just be curious about the people you meet. And set the intention. My intention, so Liz talked about it at the start, the 𝗳 There's 3 hats. The entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager. And oftentimes we get stuck in the technician hat. And the entrepreneur hat is the one that's thinking about the future and thinking about like what's next. So spend 5 hours a week. It's called thinking time. So start to build in thinking time to your daily routine, meaning like sitting down with no distractions, a pen and a paper, and asking yourself hard questions. How am I going to grow my business? What do I want the next 6 months to look like? What isn't fun? Like there's a million questions that you could ask yourself, but when you build in that time, that's the process that takes care of the business development because you're focused on it. So if you don't have that time, you're gonna hit the end of the pipeline or your projects. You're gonna go, oh, shit, what do I do? So it's actually that problem indicates that you don't have a system in place. So we put in a system so we don't have to worry about that. And that system is thinking time. And then one of the questions in thinking time is, what am I doing to generate new business? And I would just ask myself that every week.
So great. Well, thank you again for joining us. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I learn something every single time we talk. And thanks for joining in like the middle of the night over in Bulgaria. So thank you. And you too,
7 p.m.
You're in Brussels.
Totally. Quick question for you, Liz. You mentioned something in the chat about Jonathan's workshop for freelancers. Can you drop that link in the chat? I think it's part of the community, so you would have to, you have to join the community to get access to it, or how does it work?
You can just purchase it as a non-member, or it's free for 𝗳𝗐 insiders. So let me see, where was yours? Yours was, do you remember what we titled yours? I'm looking for it. Grow and scale your event business and attract clients. I found
how to grow an event-based business. Yes.
Awesome. And while you're dropping that in the chat, Anka, would you tell us more about what is coming up next week? No, in 2 days.
Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday, we have this was our last webinar for freelancers. On Thursday, we have our last webinar for hirers. It's maximize freelance potential, how to hire, manage, and motivate freelancer teams. And also, all the participants will receive the link to join the matchmaking, the actual matchmaking platform. They will have 1-2 days to build their profile. They can change it afterwards, so it doesn't matter what you put in your bio or your power pitch sentence. You can edit it afterwards. They will get an email invitation to the platform on the 31st. You will then have a few days to, as I said, 2 days to build your profile and everything. And then you will be able to see other participants, book meetings, book one-on-one calls, and actually have the power pitch meetings, 15 minutes each, on the 5th, 7th of November. That was
all right. And with that, thank you, Jonathan. And we will see you all on Thursday, or if not, November 5th. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.